So first of all, we want to give a big shout out to South Korean actor O Yeong-su, the 77-year-old guy that played, the really old dude from Squid Games. He just won the Best TV Supporting Actor at the Golden Globes. Yeah, that's so awesome. I can't believe we're already in January. We're already doing the Golden Globes, the run up to the Academy Awards. Well, he won, obviously, this year because of, Rona. We had the Golden Globes where it was like through Zoom or something, no audience, whatever. The dude is amazing. And of course, he's had a really storied career. And yeah, he was the guy in the Kim Ki-duk, the spring, summer, fall, winter. And, he's even done like a recent production of King Lear, like Shakespeare. He's like a total theater actor. So this dude, street cred, legit. Of course, he had to have played that role to a T as the mastermind behind the Squid Game as like the millionaire billionaire, pulling the strings in Korean society. But today, yeah, we want to get to the kind of like pathetic campaign that's been going on, even though there's been a revival with the main conservative candidate, Yoon Seok-yeol, but it's kind of been going a little bit pathetic because of a real kind of Squid Game by a real Korean billionaire that kind of popped up last minute, and we'll get to that. Okay, there's sort of like a little bit of a real Squid Game that popped up in direct connection with the presidential campaign of Yoon Seok-yeol, and it's kind of like a little bit pathetic. So over the weekend, we had Yoon Seok-yeol try to revamp his image, and I thought it was just gonna be limited to a revamp where he went to e-mart, and usually they kind of like try to low-key the brand names of stuff, but this is one clue. They made it prominent that he went to e-mart, and e-mart is part of the whole Shinsegae group, and that is like a sister company of the whole Samsung empire. And he went and he bought, a few goods, and I thought it was like, him trying to show that he's like a man of the people, and he was just kind of shopping. So I thought it was just like, one of those plays. No, he went and it was a coordinated effort to try to make a signal, because there is something with like the kind of like, remember I told you a little bit about the crazy-ism side of the conservatives? So you gotta get that part of the right, the far right, unfortunately. I mean, if you're gonna play the political game, whether you are it or not, if you're in the conservative bloc, you have to get that kind of like the cuckoo-ness of that, especially if you're on YouTube. There's, the cuckoo-ness part. And so a lot of it is like this kind of whole conspiracy theory, coded messages or whatnot. And it's kind of weird that this Mr. Billionaire played in on this. Well, on the Instagram of the billionaire, he put some coded messages of this term that refers to anti-communism that is 멸공, which basically means like a red hunt. Let's hunt down the communists, which is a very like old term, which essentially has a very charged term in Korean political history, because yes, there is always kind of like a communist threat, but just as it was misused and abused in the United States to go after political enemies, to just, say like, oh, you're a communist, you're a communist, you're a communist, we're gonna, jail you and, eliminate you as our political rival. Same thing happened so often here in Korea, where, you're detained and you're basically no due process and either killed, you're taken out of commission, horrible things happen to you. You're taken up to Namsan Mountain, put through a lot of torture. Like one of the places right now is like a youth hostel. Maybe we could go visit it together. I've been wanting to go, but it's shut down right now because of, Rona. And so he had his Instagram post kind of pulled down. Yeah, the billionaire, the guy who owns e-mart, not even e-mart, the group that owns e-mart, which is the Shinsegae Corporation that owns the Shinsegae department store, which is essentially, I would say, like the fanciest chain. There's like one level above it that's like more like the Saks and Neiman, the Galleria, but nobody really goes there. So I would say like Shinsegae is kind of like the more like clean and edited version of all the mainstream department stores. It's kind of fancy, so I don't know why he's like, rolling around in the gutter like this. Then, when Yoon Seok-yeol went shopping, he shopped for egg, scallion, anchovy, beans, and then he hashtagged it e-mart and with those items and Yoon Seok-yeol, and then so people are just like, they put too much effort in this, okay? And then they're basically saying like, oh, if you put anchovies, that's like myeol, chi, and if you combine myeol and then bean, kong, that's basically myeol, Kong, which sounds like Myeol-gong, which is basically like the red hunt and like let's hunt down communists, and that matches the Instagram post that the billionaire did, and they're like, oh my god, are you aligned? Oh my god, are you basically saying like, oh, you're gonna be hunting down communists together? You're basically saying like, oh, you guys are secret buddies. And then people are saying like, you guys are trying to make a coded message that you guys are gonna be like campaign, maybe you've made an alliance. Which, okay, in the big scheme of things, like obviously the Conservative Party is going to align with big business if it hasn't formally already. Obviously, in January, if you haven't already met with the chairman of Shinsegae, Samsung, Hyundai, like all the big conglomerates, Mr. Yoon Seok-yeol, then you're already late. And if you're trying to communicate with him through Instagram, then you actually, I would say, don't even deserve the nomination. You should have had this already wrapped up, and you should have had your committee meeting and met with all of the conglomerate heads months ago. You shouldn't be sliding into his DMs on Instagram 2 months before the election and posting things and trying to go shop at e-mart and buying like beans and potato chips and then trying to hashtag him for attention. That is really pathetic. And then trying to mention communists. That is really weird. But that's my opinion. The opinions of the Democrats were basically saying like, look, this is like total like weird collusion. They're trying to become like totally like, bring up this whole like 70s, 80s old world thinking and, scaremongering tactics. Now, Yoon Seok-yeol was kind of like dancing around this subject saying like, oh, no, we weren't doing this. We weren't trying to be like all like kind of like, dictatorship era. But then who do you know just rolls right in and tries to join the bandwagon like real obvious like, and is always like the hanger-on in the Conservative Party, Miss Na Kyung-won, former party leader who then got defeated by the 30-year-old guy who's now running the party. She comes in with her own photo of herself shopping at e-mart, buying anchovies and beans and saying like, Myeol-gong freedom, and she captioned the post, and she apparently, according to this report, literally blatantly said that, blatantly went in for this like dictatorial era expression. Oh my god, it's like one of those, people who are just like, anyhow, so that just followed some really weird, just blanket statements on Facebook last week by Yoon Seok-yeol, like that started to attempt to show his platform as if a Facebook post that showed no details, just a Facebook post. Like, I can run for president like this then. A Facebook post shows a platform. So he just said, let's eliminate the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. And then, of course, the crazyism people just like, well, how oh, yes. And of course, there are like a few thousand people in Korea that are just like wild about that. But that he is trying to appeal to the people who are the 20s. So the criticism that he's been getting is that he is not sufficiently getting that voter block, the 20s and 30s, and particularly the 20s and 30s male. But the approach that he's going for is using hatred. He's kind of going in the avenue of let's appeal to their angst and hatred and alienate the 20s and 30s females. Like the last time I checked, in that demographic, there are also 50% females. I mean, unless you have like 80% males in that demographic, that's kind of not a smart thing to do. Although in that Facebook, post, I did see some women also say like, yeah, let's eliminate that ministry as well. Although they kind of looked a little crazy too, but we'll leave that for, them. And then he also recently said like, okay, let's give about $2,000 a month to people who have to serve their mandatory military service. Of course, with nothing, to back it up, no plan, no budgetary plan or whatnot. Although that does seem to kind of make sense and should have been done probably a long time ago anyway. That has been like one of the biggest resentful pain points, is that you take people out of the workforce and you force them in there. You give them peanuts and you abuse them. You give them a lifelong trauma. You make them, instead of more patriotic, resent the country. I mean, how are you supposed to defend the country if you make them then resent it? So, money doesn't solve all problems, but then that could definitely help. And so he is trying to appeal then again to the male bloc, because it's only men who have to be in terms of mandatory conscription for now, I think it's about 1.5 years. And so it was just one statement on Facebook. But is it enough? I mean, are just like these single tweets or single Facebook posts enough to form a platform, something coherent? And then today he said in a speech like, oh, we need to have computer programming as an essential part of elementary school education to become a competitive workforce of the future. I mean, which makes sense, and I think that's also very strategic because he's going after the key, probably like brand image of Ahn Cheol-soo as somebody who comes from a tech background. So his campaign is becoming a little bit more savvy in that aspect, but are these one-off things enough? Does it form a coherent vision? And does it actually have the actual steps and the plan afterwards to actually make it happen? Especially when you see that it doesn't look like he knows how to manage a team or even hire a team. His campaign team 100% dissolved, went out the window. They all left. That was part of the big drama that just happened last week, where it looked like he almost lost it all. So this weekend, that started off his whole brand new renaissance, where he said he's going to show a new side, his new image. Now that's the thing, he's focusing on image, which is the wrong thing to begin with, instead of substance. But he said that he's starting a whole new leaf. This is make it or break it for him. If he can't hold it together, then he is basically gonna be replaced. And they already have a backup man now with Ahn Cheol-soo, and they already have a plan for that now, which is merging of the parties. They have already made an offer for that now, which basically is sort of like hanging in the air and on the table and ready if Ahn Cheol-soo actually just accepts. And so it's make it it or break it now for Mr. Yoon. He is fighting for his life, and like this is kind of pathetic if he's just like playing games on Instagram, trying to do like little codes as if he's like, you know, getting it out of a cereal box and being like, oh, I'm gonna play a code with like the CEO of like e-mart and see if like we can go out and hunt communists together. That is really pathetic. And so if he's going to continue like this, I don't know if he's going to be able to have the type of campaign that he would need, because the campaign staff that he did have that he totally lost, they were all prosecutors or former prosecutors. That in it of itself is a huge red flag that he did not realize that he made the first cardinal basic sin of hiring. He hired people all like himself. That is very basic and elementary in terms of a mistake. You don't hire people all like yourself. And if you don't even realize you did that, then that is a really basic sign that you probably are not fit for this job. And there is one other thing that perhaps I'll give you some free advice. It would be nice if you stopped with your weird guttural sounds. There are two. And it makes you seem like a really creepy and condescending gonde. And this is what is a huge turnoff. There's one that goes up, and there's one that goes down. The up one is condescending. So he'll say something and be like, huh? Basically is saying like, they're stupid. Everyone is dumb. He's a dumbass. And the other one is like, like as if he's some Joseon era king talking to his subjects.
있죠? 도대체 지금이 어느 때인데? 꼭 다 열어본 거 아닙니까? 은 모으는 정당입니까? 이거 되겠습니까? 정당 맞습니까?
We already know that he writes king on his hand, I guess to remind him, but if you really are a king, you don't have to write it on your hand, sweetie. So I think he's stuck in a hard place because he is right now pandering, I think, to his base, which is the real radical right when you really think about it. The younger radical right, which are these really disaffected young men who are kind of like the incels, you know, the guys that are really disaffected, the guys that are kind of like the misogynists of Korea, and they are like in this dysfunctional trap where they're trying to appeal to them. But I think the dysfunctional kind of more radical crazies of the right wing in Korea are a little bit suspicious still of Yoon Seok-yeol and have lost a lot of their type of respect for him when he sort of went a little bit too soft on them, when he cried in that interview, when he teared up in that interview in response to his wife's apology over her faking of the resume. And it looked like they were having a domestic fight in front of all of us, which wouldn't be a problem in and of itself if he had acted like kind of like an abusive husband, which is actually not, I mean, I actually like that he is kind of a softie and he is like more of a kind of like, it seems like a nice guy. But I mean, despite the and the but other than that, like he seems like, you know, kind of like a nice guy. But I think that whole kind of like getting sad and then kind of being like whipped by this girl, like I think they didn't like that. And I don't think they like that kind of thing. They really want like a real dictator. And he seems like he kind of like flows in and out of like the dictator, like he sometimes seems like he's a dictator. I think people are confused by him, and he's even like kind of confused by himself because he keeps saying like, oh, I'm gonna try to go back to the Yoon Seok-yeol that you thought you knew when I first entered this campaign. And then he kind of drifted into this weird kind of like who is he, like wearing like, you know, sweater vests and crying, and then now he's kind of going back shopping at e-mart and like sending like weird DMs and sliding into like Instagrams with hashtags to like the CEO of Shinsegae, I don't know, and trying to hunt for communists. It just seems like a little bit weird. It's all a mess. I don't know, I'm a little bit confused. What do you guys think? Can you follow along? This campaign seems like it's a mess. Please comment, like, share. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.